Robot is definitely one of my favorite heroes from the world of Invincible. He's super intelligent and even a little sassy at times, especially for a robot. But what's really going on behind that metallic exterior? Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we'll be taking a look beneath the surface and getting to know the real robot as we count down the top 10 robot Invincible facts you need to know. For those who aren't caught up yet with the Invincible animated series or who haven't explored the comic series that it was based off of, alert, alert, spoilers ahead. Alright, now let's get counting. Now that you've been warned. Number 10, first appearance. Robot makes his first appearance in issue number 2 of Invincible. Here, Robot appears as a member of the team who end up meeting Mark on his first flight out, when he attempts to apprehend one of the Mauler twins. The team also arrives to deal with that Mauler twin. Much to Robot's dismay though, Rex ruins the element of surprise by firing one of his charged objects at the pair fighting, Mark and the Mauler twin, and asking who started it first. Rex later apologizes after being called out and responds that he thought it was a good idea at the time. Robot then asks Rex to leave the good ideas up to him. Robot is the leader of the team and introduces his team to Mark, learning in exchange that Mark's name is Invincible, which Robot calls cute. There's all that sass I was talking about. Number 9, created by... Like most characters from Invincible, Robot was created by Robert Kirkman and Cory Walker. Or should I say Cory Walker and Robert Kirkman? Kirkman himself later claimed that Robot was mainly Walker's idea and that he himself had just provided the know-it-all personality and likely much of the sass for the character, but that Walker had been the one to come up with the idea for that character. And before we move on to this next spot, just a quick reminder, if you love Invincible as much as we do and you want more lists about this awesome world and these amazing characters, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, you could always click that button. Just click it. It's cool. It's cool to click. Clicking things is fun. Number 8, voiced by. Robot might have a familiar voice for those listening to him speak in the animated series. In case you were wondering just who that voice belongs to, it's Zachary Quinto. When it comes to fandoms, Quinto is definitely no stranger. He played Spock in the rebooted Star Trek films from 2009, including the follow-ups Into Darkness and Beyond. Quinto is also well known for the roles he played in the anthology horror television series American Horror Story, and beyond that, he's also no stranger to superheroes either, landing one of his earlier major roles as in the television series Heroes. Remember Heroes? Remember that? That was a time. There was a time and a place. Number 7, new body. In the animated series, we learn about Robot's true body. Robot is not actually a robot, but merely a deformed genius who cannot move around or even breathe the air. The air to him is actually toxic and it burns him. But what he lacks in physical capability, he makes up for with his massive brain. With his genius intellect, he pilots and communicates through his robot body. He ultimately decides to get a human body and seeks help from the Mauler twins in creating a clone of his teammate Rex, maturing the body only until it is a young boy. He does all of this so that Monster Girl will not be alone, and in the end this becomes his new true body. Though it is just in truth a copy of the original mind that gave it life. He helps his original body to die, which is what he wanted so that his new version might live on in his place and finally experience life to the fullest. Needless to say, Rex was not very happy to learn that Robot had cloned him without his permission. Learn from Robot's mistakes. Before you clone someone, you should probably ask first. Number 6, Monster Girl. Monster Girl is another character that I am obsessed with, so you can only imagine how I feel about the relationship that blossoms between these two characters. Robot in the animated series feels a pull towards Monster Girl, as both of them have kind of curses in their own ways. Amanda has a literal curse placed upon her that means she'll de-age whenever she uses her powers, and Robot simply has an original body, but one that he can't live in fully, as the air around him is toxic, burning him. Instead, he must live inside a tube, experiencing life only through his robotic drones. Growing closer to Monster Girl, he makes a clone body that he moves his mind into, matching her age so she won't feel so alone. In the comics, he also tells her his real name, builds her a belt to help compensate for her curse, preventing her from de-aging when she transforms, and they also end up falling in love. Number 5, Rudolph Connors. Rudolph Connors is the real name of the hero we know as Robot. Rudolph Rudolph was born deformed, but with a genius intellect, but we don't really know much else about his past. We don't know who his parents are, or where exactly he came from, or how he became a hero. He's not a teenager though, despite being a part of the teen team initially, and in fact its leader. In the animated series, when Rudolph creates the clone of Rex's body with his mind in it, he later reveals that he is actually in his 30s when it comes to his mind's age. Later on in the comic series, Robot would end up changing his name from Rudolph to Rex in his teammate and friend's memory, after Rexplode dies during the events of Invincible War. Sorry, I said there would be spoilers. Number 4. Robots. Plural. Robot doesn't just have one robot, he has multiple robots. We get to see just how many robot drones he has at his disposal and just how powerful Rudy can be because of this in the animated series when he takes on the Mauler twins. He needed the Mauler twins' help, both in the comics and in the animated series, to create his Rex clone, but in the end, he doesn't really plan on paying them like he promised, but instead plans on arresting them. Unhappy with this outcome, obviously, the Mauler twins plan to destroy Rudy's new body, the one they helped him to create. However, Robot has other plans. He ends up unleashing a bunch of his robotic drones on them, which he controls easily with his own mind. At one point, he even unleashes a giant robot version of himself, though in the end, he has to leave due to a global threat, causing him to be called back to the Guardians of the Globe home base, or headquarters, if you will. Number 3. Alternate universe. Later on in the comic series, Mark ends up learning about the existence of the Invincible multiverse. Through this exploration, he ends up becoming trapped on an alternate Earth, where he finds out his alternate self is actually the Grand Regent of the Viltrum Empire, and is also the ruler of Earth. He ends up defeating this version of himself, but goes to Robot for help with how to get back home. Robot helps Mark, but also clones him so that they will still have a version of him there to rule. A version that Robot himself decides to pilot. Yep, instead of existing in a clone of Rex's body there, Robot then lives on as a clone of Mark, who rules the Viltrum Empire and Earth after the original Mark, or the one from the main continuity, I should say, leaves, returning to his own Earth. Number 2. Ruler of the Flaxon Empire. Robot eventually goes on to become the ruler of the Flaxon Empire, if you can believe it. He and Monster Girl find themselves trapped in the Flaxon dimension and end up being captured, but after a certain amount of time, the Flaxons give up trying to dissect them. Monster Girl ends up as a gladiator, serving the Emperor later on as his personal champion, while Robot spends his time in captivity, attempting to learn more about the Flaxon language and culture, and devising a plan to overthrow the Emperor. It takes a long time, like more than 300 years, but eventually Robot ends up becoming the leader of a rebellion. Eventually the rebels win, defeating the Empire. After all these years being trapped there, Robot finds himself even more in love with Monster Girl than he was prior. Elected as Emperor, he chooses Monster Girl to rule by his side. The two, in love, decide to stay in the Flaxon Empire and help to turn it into a place that will never threaten Earth again. Eventually, Monster Girl suggests that although they are doing great things for the Flaxon Empire, were they to return home, they could also do good for Earth. And Robot agrees, and the two end up finding a way back home. During their time in the Flaxon dimension, their aging was dramatically slowed, and as time passes differently on Earth, they have barely aged, and much less time has passed on Earth when they return. So yeah, it hasn't been like 300 years on Earth, in case you were wondering. Number 1. World Domination. Monster Girl did end up convincing Robot that their return to Earth would be a good idea, and even that there was so much more good that they could do for Earth besides. And Robot listened to this idea and adopted it. The only problem for him was he would need complete control of Earth to be as effective as possible about bringing about this change, which meant turning on a lot of other heroes who would stand in his way, even his love, Monster Girl. He had hoped Monster Girl would stand by his side as she did during their time together in the Flaxon dimension, but in the end, Monster Girl was shocked to find out Robot's plan to remove Earth's heroes. Realizing she wouldn't join him, Robot ejects Monster Girl out into space. She is later rescued, but not by Robot. In the end, Robot ends up actually winning and is successful in taking over Earth, causing Mark to leave the planet, as while he agrees that Robot is an excellent ruler, he disagrees with the methods that he used to take over the planet. Which is, yeah, pretty fair, because, Pretty rough methods there, Robot. Who are some of your favorite Invincible heroes? What do you find the most fascinating about Robot? Do you think of Robot as more of a hero or more of a villain? Let us know in the comments below. And speaking of comments, it is time to turn to some comments from one of our latest videos, Top 10 Atom Eve Facts You Need to Know. Michael Harmon comments, I like how her and Mark have a more realistic Peter Parker / Mary Jane relationship, and how they don't get together right away, and how they have to learn how to love themselves before loving each other. Yeah, I also love all of that. I just love that everything in the Invincible world is so much more like grounded. Like, it's just so much more, I don't know, realistic. Parthis responds, I love Eve and Mark's ending in the comics. I hope that happens in the show. Also, she reminds me of Scarlet Witch. Yeah, I could see a little bit of Scarlet Witch there, especially with like her atom powers, where she can kind of just like make things happen and like transmute stuff. That's pretty fair. Also, I don't know if that ending will happen in the show, but I think it would be cool if it did as well. I think it's probably going to follow pretty closely the comics, but there'll probably be a few little twists. Always good to put in a little twist for those of us that already know the story. And that's all the time we have for comments today. Be sure to comment below for a chance to have your thoughts and feels shouted out in a future list. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host, Amanda McKnight, reminding you, as always, to stay nerdy, YouTube.